bombers and Tomahawk cruise missiles giving the Iraqi capital another pounding. The number of nighttime bomb runs are expected to be as heavy as the attacks that rained massive destruction on the Iraqi capital last night. Meantime, General Tommy Franks warning more tough days lie ahead for the coalition forces. But there's no doubt in his mind about the outcome of this war. The invasion commander saying allied troops are engaging Iraqi forces on our own terms.
Let's listen to the air raid sirens here.
We hear them now.
Baghdad once again with the sirens flailing, and reports earlier in central Baghdad of somewhere in the order of a handful of missiles. Those are the reports. We have not seen any as we've been watching here over the past hour or so.
And we've actually been hearing reports that more pounding would be coming. Presumably, this is the sign coming from the city.
Yeah, we don't know. The F-18s that would be taking off, they can travel up to, I believe it's 1.8 Mach 1.8. So they can get there in a fairly quick time. And it may be coordinated with guided missiles from some of the warships that sit in the Persian Gulf or in the Red Sea. We will keep track of that. In the meantime, as we keep an eye on this, let's bring in Captain Chuck Nash. Captain, give us your thoughts right now.
Well, it's interesting, Bob, as we look at the recap, because we're learning more. Some of the things that we thought initially that maybe that first night was all cruise missiles and stealth fighters, we're now finding out there were Navy F-18s and F-14s involved in that as well. So this is truly a joint and combined operation where we're bringing all the forces to bear. Some of the other things that we're learning is that you can't take things for granted. There's a very instructive thing that happened, and I'd really like to discuss
Captain, I want to let you talk, but if you'll excuse us just a second, I want to go to Brett Baer at the Pentagon with the latest. Brett, what can you tell us?
Hey, Bob, as you continue to hear those air sirens sounding, the air raid sirens over Baghdad, we can tell you that senior defense officials tell us that Republican Guard troops in and around Baghdad continue to be pounded by U.S. and coalition strikes. We were told earlier today that another wave of strikes would begin sometime in the future, obviously not a specific time, that would involve essentially the same strike package that we saw for that massive first wave attack yesterday. Now, obviously, we haven't seen that from the view of the cameras in Baghdad. We are told that some of these strikes have been happening outside the city limits and around. There are 4 Iraqi Republican Guard divisions in and around that we are told have been taking significant pounding. They are still obviously analyzing what kind of losses those troops around the city have been taking, but the strikes are, quote, rolling, according to senior defense officials. And we expect those to continue as the enemy troops, the Iraqi troops, pop up in different places. You've heard the word targets of opportunity. That is what we're going to be seeing, as well as strikes, a long list of strikes that the U.S. military and Central Command in particular had planned. Bob?
So the activity continues, but it just continues off screen, if you will. And I assume also, Brett, I don't know if they gave you this information, in other locations where they might want to soften up the enemy.
Definitely. The strikes are not limited to Baghdad in any means. However, in and around Baghdad is on the target list for the newest wave of strikes. There are strikes, however, happening across the country to take out guard and troop positions, and also to obviously provide close air support for the U.S. troops and coalition troops on the move, making a very quick march to Baghdad. We're told by some officials that they could be be around Baghdad Sunday night or Monday. I want to bring you up to date as we look at these live pictures in Baghdad of the efforts going on in the south as well. The port city of Basra, we are told that coalition troops have essentially surrounded that city and are underway in constant negotiations for the surrender of the 11th Infantry and 6 armored divisions of the Iraqi 3rd Corps. Now, a U.S. Marine commander reported earlier today that there was some fighting going on, that the battle was joined in Basra. So they are seeing some fighting, and we're not painting a rose-colored picture here that there isn't any resistance, because they are seeing different fighting. We can also report that the 3rd Infantry Division, earlier we had a report from Sky News, a reporter who was embedded with the 3rd Infantry Division, that a rocket-propelled grenade hit a Humvee. The reporter was on the air reporting that a major told him that the 4 soldiers in the Humvees that were hit died. Now, the Pentagon says that the 4 soldiers were wounded. This is obviously a part of the fog of war, a little bit of the confusion. Still haven't heard from that Sky News reporter who is embedded with that particular unit of the 3rd Infantry Division, but it is good news, obviously, and we continue to look for these airstrikes in Baghdad. Back to you.
Red, thank you.
All right, thanks for that. Actually, now we want to go to David Schrader, who is...
Well, how about if we listen in here just for a second to the call for prayers in Baghdad. Oh, we missed it. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Well, I did catch the tail end of it. I guess it's over now. So in any case, let's go to talk to somebody who is actually in the middle of Baghdad, David Schrader, who is from our sister station, Sky News.
Nothing else, no trace of fire, no ACAC. The air defenses of the city, like all of us, were caught completely out. So the all clear has been given already, and the explosions happened. Then the sirens wailed, warning us, but that warning was just simply too late.
David, it's Tim Marshall here. Whilst you were talking, we've got the screen split in two. On our left-hand shot, the lights went out on that picture for a few seconds, then came back on across the city. On the right-hand side, we've got the night vision camera, which, as you know, works by picking up any point of light and magnifying it considerably. And in the center of the screen, there's a huge swathe of black, where normally the city lights...
You're actually listening to a broadcast from our sister station, Sky News, out of London, and David Schrader, who is a reporter for Sky News, is in Baghdad. He's giving his report to them, so that's what you're listening to.
It's more than that, Tim. I mean, there's a few necklaces of light. I mean, I think the cameras that you've got are giving you a pretty false impression. From what I can see, there are fast.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'd like to welcome Major General McChrystal, who is the Vice Director for Operations of the Joint Staff. I won't quite say volunteered, but he's going to help us out on the briefings. On a very sad note, I'd like to offer the condolences of the Department to the families and friends of the U.S. and coalition forces who have died in the first 72 hours of operations. The Americans are Major J. Thomas Aubin, Marine Corps, Waterville, Maine; Captain Ryan Anthony Beaupre, U.S. Marine Corps, Bloomington, Illinois; Corporal Brian Matthew Kennedy, U.S. Marine Corps, Houston, Texas; Staff Sergeant Kendall Damon Watersby, U.S. Marine Corps, Baltimore, Maryland; Second Lieutenant Terrell S. Childers, U.S. Marine Corps, Harrison County, Mississippi; Lance Corporal Jose Gutierrez, U.S. Marine Corps, Los Angeles, California; excuse me, and Lieutenant Thomas Mullen Adams, U.S. Navy, La Mesa, California. We are all very proud of these people, the U.S. and the coalition forces, who are performing with incredible courage and skill and dedication. They're doing an outstanding job, and they're imposing some devastating impacts on the Iraqi regime. Although much work lies ahead, and you'll hear us saying that repeatedly, coalition forces are making considerable progress. The oil fields in the south are being saved to benefit the Iraqi people. Coalition forces have the key port of Qasr and are making good progress in Basra. The Iraqi forces, including some leadership, are surrendering and defecting in some numbers. I think we have a few recent images here. It is only a matter of time before the Iraqi regime is destroyed and its threat to the region and the world has ended. As we've made clear from the beginning, this is not a war against a people, a country, or a religion, and the Iraqi people who are welcoming coalition forces are clear evidence that they know this to be true. As operations go forward, we will continue to take extraordinary care to protect civilians. Our targets are military, and we continue to urge civilians to stay home and away from military assets. Additionally, we are prepared to provide as much humanitarian aid as required when and where it is needed. Very sadly, we are also aware of the reports this morning and this afternoon of journalists who are not embedded with coalition forces that have been killed and wounded. We can't confirm that for you, and we'll leave it up to their news organizations to provide further details. But it brings me to a very important point. As we've said many times, the situation in Iraq is fluid. It is quite dangerous. There are combat operations underway in a number of areas. We ask all news organizations to exercise restraint, especially with their journalists who are out there operating freely, and ask them to exercise restraint. There are risks. Combat operations are moving in a fast and unpredictable fashion. The coalition forces will, of course, exercise extreme care whenever there are non-combatants. However, reporters who get between coalition and Iraqi forces put themselves at extreme risk. And finally, I'd like to repeat a caution about the operations overall. As successful as they have been thus far, and as confident as we are about the inevitable outcome, we know challenges and difficulties may still lie ahead. General.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. I, too, would like to extend my condolences to the families of our British allies and those of our families who've lost loved ones in combat over the last days. Operation Iraqi Freedom continues. A-Day began yesterday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The goal of the air campaign is to neutralize Iraqi leadership, suppress missile threats to our forces and Iraq's neighbors, support our special forces operations, to target Republican Guard, Special Republican Guard, and Iraqi intelligence service operations, as well as be on call for combat air control missions for time-sensitive targeting. More than 1,000 sorties were flown against several hundred targets across Iraq yesterday. More than 400 Tomahawk cruise missiles were launched from United States Navy and British ships and submarines. Additionally, about 100 air-launched cruise missiles were fired, and several hundred precision-guided munitions were dropped by coalition aircraft on targets throughout Iraq. On the ground, coalition forces continue the main attack towards Baghdad. Ground forces have reached more than 150 miles into Iraqi territory and have crossed the Euphrates River. Coalition forces are advancing north beyond An-Nasiriyah. As General Franks mentioned, there are between 1,000 and 2,000 Iraqi soldiers who have surrendered and been taken into custody. And although numbers are hard to determine, we've seen significant evidence of many Iraqi soldiers simply abandoning their equipment and leaving. Clearly, Operation Iraqi Freedom is moving forward. The success to date is a product of meticulous planning, effective integration of air, maritime, ground, and special operations forces, and the impressive accomplishments of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen of the coalition. But the operation's not over. There's a long way to go in much of the Iraqi armed forces, highlighted by 6 Republican Guard divisions and Special Republican Guard divisions, who may still fight. So we must remain prepared for potentially tough fights as we move forward. That said, while the progress and timing of the operation remains impossible to forecast, the outcome is not. With that, we'll take your questions.
Bob.
General, you referred to the 1,000 to 2,000 approximately Iraqis in custody. What became of the 8,000 members of the 51st that were said to have surrendered yesterday? Were they just allowed to go home, or what's become of those?
So we're seeing several phenomena. The commander of the 51st Division, one of his senior leaders, in fact, surrendered themselves individually. We also see soldiers essentially leaving the battlefield or melting away. The unit did not surrender en masse. What we have for numbers is, as General Franks outlined this morning, as of this morning, between 1,000 and 2,000 actually in an EPW status.
So in that specific case, you say only the commanders are in custody, the rest of them just left or allowed to leave? Or?
So I don't have any more information beyond what I provided.
Sorry, first of all, a procedural question. Going back to Kosovo, will you be doing this on an almost daily basis now as long as the war lasts? And I have a question for the General.
For the foreseeable future, but we'll see the level of activity and interest. But for now, that'll be the general game plan. Try to get CENTCOM to brief early afternoon their time, early morning our time, and then someone from here early afternoon.
Great. General, thank you. Welcome. You're going to learn to love us while you're here. Question, you say that the forces have crossed the Tigris. Any other major...
Euphrates, sir.
Another river. Just another river, right. Any other major land barriers before these troops get to Baghdad? And what's an ETA on the outskirts of Baghdad? Can you give us any idea at all?
Sir, trying to predict the conclusion of the operation or reaching Baghdad would be impossible at this point. The forces have moved with impressive speed thus far, as we outlined, and the product of that is where we are. That said, whenever you actually execute a plan, the enemy gets a vote. We've still got significant Iraqi forces in front of us. They may fight, they may not. If they fight, there could be tough battle to be taken. So trying to predict a time would be really difficult.
And
barriers?
I just add on to that. General Myers, I think, yesterday was the one who said, we're making good progress. There are still a lot of unknowns out there, and I've already picked up a tendency to look and seek for hard and fast benchmarks. We won't be predicting those, and we will be constantly cautioning as much progress as we are making, bad things could still happen.
Just the first part of the question, any more natural barriers, or are they just going to be speeding across mostly desert towards Baghdad?
So I don't want to talk about the operational details of their route. They've crossed the Euphrates very, very successfully.
Well, since the Iraqis obviously already know, could you give us the furthest point of advance by, say, at least the 3rd Infantry and the 1st MEF? Could you just kind of pinpoint a little bit for us on the map?
Let me jump in there for a second. Operations are underway. A lot of parts and pieces are moving as we speak. And clearly, strategic surprise isn't something we've got. There is still tactical surprise, and we're going to try hard not to stand up here and paint a picture for the Iraqi regime of exactly where we are and exactly what we've got going at any moment in time.
I just mean ballpark. Sort
of even ballpark. Brett.
General, you singled out 6 Republican Guard divisions and Special Republican Guard divisions, the most loyal troops, some of those obviously in and around Baghdad. We understand they've been targets. They were on the target list. Is there any assessment on the troops around Baghdad of what you're seeing with that resistance right now?
So nothing we can pin down at this point. We're continuing to gather effects of the operations to date.
If I could follow up, Tori, yesterday Secretary Rumsfeld said the Iraqi leadership is essentially losing control of the country. Is there more? Can you characterize it further today on command and control, what you're seeing and hearing?
It's really more of what he was talking about yesterday. They appear not to have a lot of control over all the parts and pieces you would expect them to. There seems to be confusion in the command and control, and I'll leave it at that. Thelma.
All along, Defense Secretary Rumsfeld has, before this ever started, warned that it could take 6 days, 6 weeks, or even 6 months. And this morning in the President's radio address, he had again warned that this could take a long time. I wonder if it's time to remind the American people that this may not be wrapped up any time in the next few days. It could be a considerable period.
I wouldn't put a time frame on it because we just don't know. But we've said from the very beginning, even well before the start of military operations, there are a lot of unknowns. There are a lot of bad things that can happen, and we'll take it one day at a time. And the only thing that is of great certainty is what the outcome is, the end of this regime.
Tori, regarding the journalists who have been killed, any information that would suggest that they died as a result of U.S. military fire? And are you taking any steps to try to mitigate the risk to journalists who aren't actually embedded with U.S. troops?
We've heard several different versions of what may have happened to different sets of reporters, and it's very unclear to us right now what has happened in different places. What is very certain is they are journalists who were not embedded with coalition forces. And as we've warned repeatedly, again, weeks before the start of this operation, it seems like it's stating the obvious, but it is very, very dangerous out there, especially when people are wandering freely between coalition and Iraqi forces. So we have no evidence to suggest what you said. We have lots of evidence to suggest that it is very dangerous out there, and I will say again to news organizations, and I've talked to bureau chiefs today, we really, really urge you to exercise restraint with your journalists that are out there operating freely. But we have no evidence.
Has the U.S. military had to go rescue any journalists under fire who were not embedded, and has that resulted in any risk to U.S. troops?
We will try to get you more information. I've received some information that U.S. forces may have medevaced one journalist, but we'll try to get you more information as the day goes on.
And one last thing about can you bring us up to date on whatever your state of knowledge is on the Iraqi regime, Saddam Hussein or anyone else in control? Do you know where any of those people are? Is there any evidence that anyone is leaving or defecting or making contact with?
Don't have information about specific individuals, but I'll repeat what I said before. We continue to see evidence of confusion, of not a real solid grip on the command and control aspects that you would expect at this time.
Have you seen any evidence of Saddam Hussein at all? Has he appeared anywhere?
Probably heard as many different stories as people in this room have. 5 or 6 different stories, and who knows?
Yes.
Who knows?
General,
Carl.
can I ask you a question?
No, let's go to Carl.
Sorry, and General, either one of you. Can you tell us how far shock and awe has gone? Is there more shock and awe left? Are we going to see more today? If you don't want to put a specific on it, but is there some left in the barrel there?
Yes, sir. There's as much left in the barrel as required. The air campaign has been directed at a number of targets. Most importantly, at the beginning, the Iraqi command and control capability, the regime leadership, and then weapons of mass destruction and their capability to execute those. And that's tied to command and control as well. It will continue to target additional parts of the force as long as resistance is there, to include Republican Guards and Special Republican Guards, the intelligence. We are waiting to get the feedback on how well that's working, and there's a lag time in that. We are hitting targets effectively and with precision, and pleased with that, but it takes a little while, as Tori just described, to get the feedback on how much we've affected it, because we know they have redundant capabilities in many areas.
You should have been able to get some BDA today, though. The skies are pretty clear. You could take a look at it. How successful?
Well, sir, we can see whether or not we've hit targets in many cases, and we're still gathering that. But we're running an effects-based campaign that is partially kinetic, partially non-kinetic, partially information operations. And so what we judge effectiveness by is not just whether there's a hole in the roof of a building, but whether or not the function that element did before ceases to be effective.
Are we likely to see another show like last evening?
So I won't predict the future, but I will say that it will happen as much as required.
Tony, can I, the show last night, and the weapons that you outlined...
You know, let me stop you for a second. I know I'm not always as careful with words as I should be. It's not a show. It's not a game. And I just think people should be really, really careful with the words.
Right. The campaign we saw in full last night. Show is not my word, by the way. There was early on, like over the last month, we've had this mythical 3,000 precision-guided bombs would rain down on Baghdad on the first night. This is the New York Times put that in play. Your math lays out maybe 1,000 weapons at most, if conservatively. Was that the original plan a much greater number, or was this always kind of the state of play, roughly 1,000 or so? Because that set the stage for these expectations of shock, awe, whatever you want to call it.
Sir, a couple things. First is, to go back in shock and awe as a concept, the idea is very precise. And some people, I think, misinterpreted shock and awe for a wave of fire and huge destruction. In fact, in an effects-based campaign as this was, we can achieve much shock and awe by hitting just critical points. In fact, a perfect shock and awe would hit as few as possible to create those effects. So the answer is, we believe we are having effect, but it's tough to do that. Whether it will go forward in numbers,
Well, then let me just add on one point to that. If you go back to our objectives, our objective very clearly is to break the back of the Iraqi regime while causing as little collateral damage as possible. That's what our objective is. What is so important about the plan is its ability to scale up and scale down.
General Franks today mentioned he doesn't think about strategic targets. He thinks about emerging targets. In the long run, might emerging targets, command and control and Iraqi Republican Guard units, might those be more important in the long run than the CNN kind of shock and awe we've been seeing out of Baghdad?
It's your fault.
I think that's a great question, and it gives an opportunity to discuss flexibility. As we demonstrated the other night, the key to having a very effective effects-based campaign is to be flexible, i.e. not to have a program over day after day that you hit automatically. Instead, what they are doing is seeing what needs to be struck next, either lethally or non-lethally. And so I think that's exactly what you're seeing right now.
What the role of SOF would play? Is SOF playing the same role it did in Afghanistan? Yeah, no.
So the role is different, but the same. They are leveraging combat power. The key role of Special Operating Forces is to take very mature, well-trained people and leverage power, i.e. it's not desirable that they get in direct firefights themselves, but instead they use air, they work with coalition allies, they use information, and a small force has a disproportionate effect on the battlefield. And that's what we're having right now.
Pam.
Could you, on the map that you showed us, you identified the airfields H2 and H3 and showed special forces near them. Are they in control of both of those airfields? Could you describe for us what that green line is, what that represents? Could you talk to us a little bit about the fighting in Basra? Could you tell us about scud hunting? And could you talk to us about non-lethal weapons? And now I'm done, and I'll remind you as you go through. The non-lethal weapons.
My mind is like one of those old computers. They can only take a certain amount. The airfields out in the west, there are H1, 2, 3, and 4, and they stretch into Jordan. I won't comment on what you're under our control now. Clearly, we have Special Operating Forces in the west.
You said there was one as of yesterday. Has that number grown?
I won't discuss. There are still forces operating, and I think we put them at risk if we talk too much about exactly what they're doing.
Okay, and the green line that was on the map, what does that represent? It has a sign that says green line.
That is the line between the Kurdish control part of northern Iraq and the remainder of Iraq.
And I'm sorry, the scud hunting, how's that going? Or have we seen scuds launching, or are we finding scuds?
Well, we've seen no scuds launching, and that was what I was involved in during the 1991 war, and it was a combination of ground forces and air suppression over, and then, of course, intelligence. We're doing a different job of it this time, but so far there have been no scuds launched, which is very positive to date.
You don't any evidence of that? Mr. McCarthy,
what's about Basra and...
So you got 2.5.
But everybody's interested.
Go ahead, you can ask her a question.
Can you talk to us about the strategy of dealing with a large city like Basra and then basically sealing it off once you have destroyed the organized force and then moving rapidly beyond? Same strategy today in al-Nasiriyah. The risk that you take of having potentially a hostile city behind you, several of them, as you stretch out your lines of communication and resupply. High-risk strategy?
It depends upon the situation, sir, and I'd let General Franks characterize it in each case. Clearly, we try to avoid combat in cities because of the effect on civilians and potential damage to infrastructure as well. In cases where we can bypass or isolate and continue the operation forward and hope then that that element or that location falls without pitched combat, I think that's in everyone's best interest. And the commander on the ground weighs whether or not the enemy forces in the city are any kind of threat to his lines of communication.
But aren't you leaving a boiling pot behind potentially if the reception of American forces is different than you hope it's going to be? You leave something that can interrupt your resupply, something that can hit you from the rear?
So I wouldn't speculate. I think the commander on the ground really has the field to make the assessment in each case.
And they also have the ability to scale as needed and appropriate. Barbara.
General, we saw some early morning bombing over Baghdad at dawn Baghdad time. Should we take from that that you're now confident enough that you've taken down the air defense system enough over Baghdad and over Iraq to have daylight bombing?
Ma'am, we have the capability to operate anytime. We still respect the air defenses in the Baghdad area. It, of course, as you know, was known as the Super Missile Engagement Zone, or MEZ. But the air defenses there are an integrated system of air defense artillery, radars, command and control communications, and surface-to-air missiles. If you can take down parts of that and degrade it, then it gets more feasible to operate effectively in day or night. We are still respectful of what they have.
And if I could also follow up, Secretary Rumsfeld yesterday again spoke about communications that elements of the administration had with Iraqi leadership, and that was key to your decision-making on going forward in the campaign. If they were to surrender, that might be a good sign. Has there been any sign beyond the Republican Guard that you spoke about that any member of the senior leadership in Iraq is responding to the overtures from the Bush administration?
I'd say two things. One, for quite some time now, with a variety of tools, the President of the United States speaking very openly, the leaflets, the commando solo, a variety of ways, a variety of conversations and discussions. We've been communicating with the leadership saying, end this now. Save your lives, save the Iraqi people's lives. So we have communicated with them consistently over with a range of tools, and we'll continue to do this. I'm not going to characterize individual conversations, but discussions are ongoing, and there is still an opportunity for some people to do the right thing.
General, have you found any evidence that the Special Operations Forces operating in western Iraq found any evidence of Scud, either missiles or launchers or fueling trucks or anything that might suggest there are any Scuds left out there?
To my knowledge, we have not discovered any to this point.
General, can I in the airstrikes that have targeted the Republican Guards, can you say whether you're going after headquarters and leadership as opposed to fielded forces? And if you are, why would you not go after forces that you may have to fight?
So I wouldn't give the operational details of exactly what we're targeting. We are trying to have effects-based outcomes on those organizations as well. Sometimes destroying the internal command and control of a division fragments its combat power more quickly than anything else. But I think that's as far as I'd go.
Without disclosing the location of where you actually crossed the Euphrates, can you just tell us, did you cross at a place where there were already bridges in place, or did you bridge over the Euphrates at some other point and cross?
Sir, in fact, we were able to utilize bridges that were already in place.
Tom Bowman.
Can you get into the weapons of mass destruction sites? They were listed the first night of the air campaign. How many were struck? What do you suspect was there, either chem, bio, or long-range missile? And did you use any special kinds of weaponry, incendiary devices, for example, to take them out?
If you go back to what Secretary Rumsfeld talked about yesterday, and General Franks went through it again today, clearly one of our top priorities, one of our top objectives, is to find and destroy the WMD. There are a number of sites. I won't go into details which ones they are, where they are, but it is I will not give you a ballpark, but I'll do two things. One is just underscore what a priority that is for us, and two, try to manage expectations. We know with great certainty the Iraqi regime was extraordinarily skilled at hiding this stuff, at dispersing this stuff in very small amounts in underground bunkers. So I want to manage expectations. It could be difficult to find and exploit this stuff.
Any kind of special bombs and missiles used to take some of this stuff out, incendiary kind of weapons?
And that's a great question. In fact, the whole weaponeering process that we use in our very, very meticulous targeting process identifies every target, identifies the best munition to use. In some cases, a munition that might potentially help destroy any agents that might be there is an option. There are many other options, but in addition to the correct munition from that standpoint, we also balance that against potential collateral damage, potential unintended casualties of civilians. So a lot goes into the calculus that determines exactly what munition is used.
When you mention the target category of weapons of mass destruction and the capability to execute them, what are you really talking about? Do
Can you explain that? Because I don't think you're actually bombing stocks of chemical weapons. What are you bombing?
I would not go into the specifics exactly, but we are taking great care not to achieve a negative effect with something we're trying to hit.
And do you hope to see some of these sites with ground troops as opposed to bombing it because of the concern maybe about some sort of a chemical plume, let's say, or something?
Well, I think exactly. Every weapon of mass destruction location has its own inherent built-in danger to it, either if it's stored incorrectly, even just going in. And so as we go after each of those, we'll look to secure them, and we'll look to then render them safe in a very in a way that's not dangerous for our coalition forces going in or to the surrounding area.
Clearly some you feel safe to bomb as opposed to seize.
I won't identify which we might feel safe to bomb and which we wouldn't.
The Iraqis have set trenches full of oil on fire all around the city today, which is a traditional way that the Russians have tried to create some sort of primitive air defense. Would you speculate for us on what you think they're doing? Do they not know that the United States has JDAMs other than making
If the
pollution?
general wants to speculate about it from a military operations standpoint, I encourage him to do so. My personal opinion for a long time has been that they intended to do this for a very different reason. I don't think they truly thought it would impede our planes or our precision-guided weapons. I think for a long time, because their propaganda, their disinformation, their lies and deception are such a big part of the apparatus, I think they've planned for a long time to do that, to try to create very dramatic images of what it looks like is happening in Baghdad. What we know with certainty is that we have carefully chosen every target. What we know with great certainty is that we have chosen every target toward our objective of breaking the back of the regime and keeping the collateral damage and the non-combatant casualties to an absolute minimum. So I personally am quite confident it was for a very different reason.
Don't there have to be explosions before fires are started? I mean, that sort of, if there isn't a bombing campaign at that time, I don't know how stupid the Iraqi people or the international community is, but I don't know how that washes.
Well, who knows right now what the Iraqi people are seeing or hearing. But, and also we're trying to keep tabs, but it's hard to see what people in the other parts of the world are seeing or how it is being characterized to them. But the images in and of themselves can be dramatic. We're trying very hard to explain to people how careful the targeting process was, how we tried to hit certain targets with certain purpose, how we were not doing those things. The very placement of some of these trenches gives you an indication of what they were thinking. Putting trenches near hospitals and mosques and schools, which are clearly not targets for us.
Is there any military reason? Does it impede any aspect of anything you do, General?
I believe there could be a belief that any obscurant could assist them, but it is, I do not believe that will have the effect that they may hope.
General, can I ask you a question about activities in the north? We haven't heard much other than that there are special operations forces there. Can you tell us whether the oil fields in the north have been secured, and also any details that you might have on the raids against the terrorist camps up there?
At this point, we continue to have special operating forces in the north. In fact, there was a strike as part of last night's operation against the facility that you've written about before, Kerma. We are still gathering battle damage assessment from that. In regards to the oil field, that is not yet in coalition hands.
Have there been any sabotage there like we've seen in the south?
Not seen evidence of it yet.
No evidence.
Let's go over here.
General, you said that the troops were making good progress, but by the evidence of the names that were read at the beginning of this press briefing, clearly it's not a complete rollover. Can you give us any idea where the coalition forces are meeting the most resistance, and can you give us any details of what the fighting has been like?
I would leave it to CENTCOM to describe that, because I think they do it better than we have. I think the speed of the advance will indicate that any engagements have been settled fairly rapidly.
General, will the north remain a special operations area, or will there be regular Army forces, ground troops moving in larger numbers in the coming days?
So I won't really add to what the chairman said. There will be a northern option or part of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and whatever operational forces we decide to use will be seen as it unfolds.
Let's take Tammy, and then we'll go way back.
Is there any evidence so far that any of the resistance encountered by advancing troops has been directed from Baghdad, or perhaps are the units on the ground responding to standing orders in place? And then also, have U.S. forces encountered any caches of WMD of any kind?
We have found no caches of weapons of mass destruction to date. It is difficult to say what causes the engagements from the Iraqi forces.
Way in the back.
Tori, and for the general, is it your belief that Saddam is the only really cohesive force holding the Iraqi defenders together? In other words, that the demise of Saddam or the demise of his leadership circle would translate automatically into immediate evaporation of resistance? Or is there some scenario where you could see Saddam going away but the fighting continuing?
I'll try, and then you can follow up. As I've said before, who knows about Saddam Hussein? There are 5, 6, 7 different reports about what his status might be. Clearly, we're having an impact on the leadership. As I said before, and the Secretary has said repeatedly, there is confusion. There doesn't seem to be the vigorous, robust command and control direction that you would expect. So clearly, we're having an impact on the leadership. And I think we'll just leave it there.
More about the strikes on the Ansar al-Islam in the north. Could you tell us the extent of those were cruise missile strikes and whether also airplane strikes?
So they were Tomahawk land attack missile strikes that went into the Kerma facility.
Troy, what about those 4 KIA that were reported today? Has that been sorted out whether there were 4?
Mixed reports. Don't have anything for you on it. Thank you.
Clarification, General, real quick. You said were Special Operations Forces on the ground used to laze targets in any of these strikes?
I don't think he said.
Do you have any evidence that Tomahawks went into Iran?
in Iran?
On the right-hand side of your screen, as we've been watching this Pentagon press briefing, is Mosul. We have seen tracer fire as well as bombs. Now, this is the largest city in the far north part of Iraq. It is a major Kurdish area. This is at least the second time.
It was surrounded by tanks, some sort of an Iraqi facility. Couldn't tell if it was military or industrial, and they were believed to be inside. Now, details remain sketchy. Even the higher headquarters are not exactly sure what happened. But shots were exchanged, and there is 1 KIA. We understand that the Iraqis fled that compound possibly before the tanks responded. And here they are right now. We're not sure how they got in this position. Right now they are all handcuffed, and they seem to be either interrogating them or labeling them, each one. 1 second, please. What did you find out?
I count 13 total. 1 is dead. At least 2 or 3 are injured. They are getting medical attention.
And we'll get further reports from Greg Kelly, who's embedded with the 3rd Infantry Division. In other news tonight, a reminder that war journalists in Iraq are taking a bit of a risk bringing the story home. One Australian cameraman has been killed. He was killed instantly after a car bomb exploded at a checkpoint in northern Iraq. He's a freelancer who was working at the time for ABC. 4 others in the car with him were also killed. The blast coming after U.S. cruise missiles destroyed an al-Qaeda-linked militant camp overnight, or that's how it was described to us, al-Qaeda-linked militant camp. And in southern Iraq, 1 British newscaster and 2 crew members reported missing. They work for ITN. They came under fire while driving toward Basra. While U.S.-led forces work on taking out Saddam, the feds are continuing their work in the war on terror here on American soil. The Homeland Defense or Homeland Security Department working to protect us from any potential attacks and urging people to be alert and report any suspicious behavior. This is the feds' hunt for a guy suspected of having ties to al-Qaeda. Fox Sports now from Julie Kurtz, who's live in our D.C. newsroom. Julie?
Hi, Shepard. That's right. On the home front, the FBI is trying to find this man. I think we have a picture of him. Adnan al-Shukri Jumha. At any rate, he's a Saudi national. There you go. And he may have links to al-Qaeda. The FBI says he's about 27 years old, and he's dropped from sight. So they've put out a be on the lookout alert for him, for the public to be on the lookout. Investigators say he's possibly connected to Jose Padilla, the American accused of plotting a dirty bomb attack And in an ongoing operation, the Department of Homeland Security is targeting the money that makes terrorism possible with so-called Operation Green Quest. Over the last few days, federal agents arrested at least 9 people in Los Angeles, New York, Minneapolis, Newark, and Detroit. The suspects are charged with illegally transferring millions of dollars overseas, primarily to Pakistan, but also Lebanon and Jordan. Officials believe the money could be used by terrorists overseas. As one top Homeland Security official put it, part of our team is on the offense now. And in other developments at home today, Chicago joins New York City and Washington, D.C., imposing a no-fly zone around the downtown area. That means small airplanes are banned from the restricted airspace. The mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois have been pushing for the protection zone around their city. They also announced today that military jets will start security patrols there. They did not announce any specific new threat today there and encourage residents to go about their regular business. And that is easier said than done. There is high security awareness in many places around the country. Signs along various highways are urging people to report anything suspicious. At U.S. airports, security is tight but can vary depending on where you are. The Transportation Security Administration is introducing what it calls, quote, tailored security systems. It's ranked 429 airports according to factors like size, location, and the general risk. That means you may encounter different security measures around the country during the war. For example, some airports are randomly searching cars and some are not. And the war on terror, Shep, goes beyond the homeland. It's global. Example, right after the bombs began dropping in Baghdad, Operation Valiant Strike started up in southern Afghanistan. U.S. troops there are searching, as you know, villages and caves for members of al-Qaeda. That's the latest from here, Shepard.
Julie Kurtz, great to have you back on the team. Good to see you. Keeping now what we eat safe from terror. The food industry taking steps to stop terrorists who may be targeting our food supply, beefing up security with fences at processing plants, plus hiring more guards and doing background checks on workers there. The details being kept vague to make sure the security is effective. The feds are not sure how well it's working. Part of the problem here is companies are not required to share their plans with the federal government. You are looking live in Baghdad. It's just almost now 3:30 in the morning there. Team Fox coverage of Operation Iraqi Freedom continues. We will go live to Kuwait and the Camp Pennsylvania, where the attack has happened on American troops. At the moment, we are calling it a terror attack because the early dispatches to us are that this happened from al-Qaeda forces, not from Iraqi forces. An attack by Iraqi might be considered another battle in the conflict. An attack by al-Qaeda is something else entirely. We'll get the details in a live report coming up. But first, from our newsrooms coast to coast, Fox reports across America. New York, an anti-war demonstration in New York City. Protesters marching down Broadway and into Washington Square Park, chanting "Peace Now." Police calling it a peaceful protest. An estimated more than 100,000 turned out for it. No reports of any arrests. Anti-war demonstrations also taking place in other cities, including Chicago and San Francisco. Indiana. A rally for America in Auburn, an estimated 9,000 people showing their support for the men and women on the front lines in Iraq. Lots of flag waving and chants of "Go America." One man says he's there because, quote, "We're really tired of all the protesters." Similar rallies happening in other towns across the nation. Recent polls show more than 70% of Americans support the attack on Iraq. Georgia, the work of cleaning up goes on after this week's tornadoes in Worth and Mitchell counties. The twisters cutting a path of destruction about a mile wide and 3 miles long. The storm killing 6, injuring 200, and destroying as many as 100 homes. Virginia, a zoning officer in Richmond ordered to take down the American flag he put up in an office area. 3 of his co-workers complained about the flag because it replaced a work banner. The zoning officer receiving dozens of supportive phone calls and emails, the state attorney general and a U.S. congressman writing the city manager expressing their outrage over the decision. And that's a Fox Watch. Across America, updating now the attack on our troops of the 101st at Camp Pennsylvania in Kuwait. It now appears that the early dispatches of this as a terrorist attack of someone connected with al-Qaeda are proving in the early fog of war to be incorrect. Our correspondent there, Stuart Ramsey, who actually works for our sister network, Sky News in the United Kingdom, but is embedded with the 101st, tells us the following. A soldier is now missing from that camp, and a search is underway for him, as Fox reports this hour. Ramsey suggests this may not have in fact been a terrorist attack because the two original suspects have been accounted for, and they have now been said to be translators, folks who were working for the 101st there to translate the local language into English. So the latest as we know it, 6 people are injured, 6 of our members of the 101st who were inside this tent at Camp Pennsylvania in Kuwait. They are getting medical attention as we speak. In addition, 1 soldier, as he is described, is said to be missing, and they're undergoing a search is underway for that particular soldier right now. We are told by the military that folks who have family who might be with the 101st and concerns about such a thing have a phone number they can call. The military also insists that notifications are made as quickly as humanly possible. We'll have much more on this in a live report from Camp Pennsylvania the moment we can establish that link. That is. Now coalition forces are on the move. The 1st Marine Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion passing raging oil fires now. Soldiers stopping along the way to make sure their equipment is in fighting shape, and you can see the oil fires. They're on the ready now for anything that may get in their way. Let's get a Fox report from our own correspondent, Rick Leventhal, who's embedded with the Marines, giving us an unprecedented and historic look at modern warfare.
We passed more than a dozen oil fires as we traveled north, further into Iraq, driving under and next to towers of flames several stories high. And we saw hundreds of camels, one young one by himself, others in large packs. Meanwhile, our pack moves slowly because of trouble ahead and more than one flat tire. There are guard posts built on highway overpasses, but all of them appeared empty. And we saw farmhouses and men dressed like farmers. But the Marines suspect some of these guys are soldiers who changed clothes to avoid capture. Marines are staging again at yet another assembly area, digging fighting positions and checking their gear. But no one expects to stay here very long. In Iraq, Rick Leventhal, Fox News.
It's the bottom of the hour now, and time for the top of the news. The 101st Airborne coming under attack at its base in northern Kuwait. What we were describing as terrorists, now people who are being described to us by our correspondent there as 2 translators, sneaked into the camp and rolled grenades into a tent and opened fire with small arms. That, according to witnesses on scene. The attack wounding 10 soldiers, 6 of them seriously wounded, and 1 soldier now said to be missing, with a search underway. Iraqi state television airing footage that it claims shows Saddam Hussein today meeting with senior leaders today. Fox News cannot confirm those dates or the authenticity of the tape. The regime says it's working on plans now to deal with what it calls the aggression, one of Saddam's top advisors labeling coalition forces a gang of war criminals. President Bush meeting today with the War Cabinet at Camp David, the commander-in-chief promising an unrelenting military campaign, but warning America will not be an easy road ahead. In his weekly radio address, President Bush saying the mission is clear, Saddam Hussein must be disarmed, his regime's support for terrorism must end, and the freedom of the Iraqi people must be achieved. The president saying members of the coalition's fighting force are serving with honor and that he's praying for their safe return to America. It's now 34 minutes past the hour of 3 a.m. with the 101st Airborne in Kuwait. Correspondent Stuart Ramsey of the News Corp family and our sister network Sky News is with us from there. Stuart, we appreciate your updates more than I can tell you. What do you know about this event there?
To be honest, this is changing so often, it's becoming more and more confusing by the minute. I have to say, as a rider, before I report what happens, you have to believe I cannot confirm everything I'm hearing at this stage. The initial reports told us of 2 Kuwaiti nationals. We understand they were considered translators who carried out an attack on the main command tent of Camp Pennsylvania. A number of people were injured in that. Some have been medevaced away. In the last minute or two, few minutes or so, I've been told that 2 translators have been accounted for. A soldier is now missing. A hunt is underway for whoever carried out the attack. The soldier is missing. The inevitable conclusion are that it could have been carried out by a soldier himself. Now, this we do not know at this stage. It is very, very confusing, but that is certainly the working assumption that the patrols are out in the field around the camp looking for. They are not, at this stage, I understand, looking for any more Kuwaiti nationals. However, that could change. The command and control at the moment is slightly fractured. There's a lot of information coming through on the airways and a lot of confusion. Certainly, in individual areas of the camp, every groupings of tents has a 360-degree guard on it. They have armored vehicles at each corner point, and basically each section of the camp is attempting to protect itself. All the tents are being searched on a regular basis. We have had a number of air sound warnings for ground attack against us. Those have since been cleared. As it stands now, there's a high battle alert and considerable concern for the soldier, whether he's missing or whether he is AWOL.
We're on the satellite phone with Stuart Ramsey of Sky News, who is reporting now from the 101st at Camp Pennsylvania in Kuwait. And Stuart, as this thing has evolved, the changes have been interesting to watch. First, it was believed to be a terror attack, then two translators accounted for. By accounted for, does that mean that the translators have been ruled out? And if you don't mind, where do the reports that this missing soldier may have been responsible for this grenade explosion, where do those reports originate?
These originate from the air traffic, the radio traffic between the various command posts. There is nothing at this stage that I have heard on that traffic that this soldier is being held responsible. It's just that he is missing and unaccounted for, and we understand that he was guarding material and he is no longer there, and I understand that some of that is missing. I don't know what it is, but I have been told that this is completely without any foundation from command headquarters itself, but that the grenades are missing. So that is where that is coming from. It is senior officers, but this is purely what the assumptions they're working on. We are not saying that this happened. We are only saying that that is the assumption that they must investigate. I don't know if the translators, my understanding is they've been accounted for. I agree with
the satellite phone breaking up for just a second. Stuart Ramsey, are you still there? Stuart, your satellite phone is breaking up just a little bit. So what he's saying is, not making any accusations, but Stuart Ramsey is listening to the two-way radio traffic there. Reporters almost always in an embedded situation like this carry radio so that they can monitor what's being said there to help with their reporting. And the discussion along the radios, if I have it correctly, is that this particular soldier is missing, that they're looking for this particular soldier at this point, and that they have some questions for this particular soldier. Stuart, if you are there, what more do we know about the condition of the 10 people injured, 6 of them described as serious? Well, satellite.
Just to remind viewers who may be joining us, you're watching live coverage from Qasr, which is the strategically vital port in the south of Iraq. Thought to be under coalition control some 12 hours ago. We have in the last hour been reporting live from this firefight as coalition forces came under attack. And what you're watching now is their response. Now, our reporter David Bowden, his cameraman Mike Donnelly have been with the Marines throughout this. And David, as I say, it is Sunday morning. People are just switching on for an update. Would you mind just bringing us up to speed on what has been going on there in the last hour?
Okay, a brief history of how this morning unfolded. It was just after 8 o'clock local time. People were going about their morning routines, having breakfast, getting washed and scrubbed up, when from 2 Iraqi squads over in a building to the front of us now, approximately just to the left, I think, of where Mike is pointing the camera right now, there was fire coming into this port of Qasr. That triggered a load of U.S. Marines scurrying up this huge berm here onto the top and laying down a hail of machine gun bullets to suppress that fire. That was followed up by some mortar fire into the area, the same objective, to keep the heads down of the people that were firing on us. And after that, they used Javelin missiles to target the building they thought the fire was coming from. The first of those went long. The second one was deemed to be a direct hit, and we have had no fire from that building since then. What has happened since then is that there have been a number of vehicles seen in the area. Some of them have been deemed friendly, i.e. containing coalition forces, American or British. One of those at least was deemed to be hostile. That vehicle was taken out. 3 people are dead in and around that vehicle. Since then, there has been sporadic fire as other people have been found moving around, so-called shadowy figures. And as we can probably see, if Mike just pans the camera around slightly, there are a line of tanks having moved in to try and get a different angle on the situation for the U.S. Marines here. I'm just hearing that
David,
there are
what is
bodies
this doing
in black somewhere over the berm. Sorry, Simon.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, David, but what is this doing to other operations in the area? Does everything stop while these firefights go on, or do other troops simply go around and try and move on?
What has happened already this morning is that another element of the 15th MEU, the Marine Expeditionary Unit here, which is under the control, of course, of the British 3 Commando Brigade, has moved further on up to the naval base, just further up the waterway from here. Now, they say they encountered very little resistance at all going in there. They've cleared that area. They did find some munitions in an armory there, perhaps not surprising. It is a naval base. They also found barges with sea mines on them. The fear was that what the Iraqis might do is just unload a whole bunch of these mines into the waterway as a sort of leaving present as they withdrew, and of course denying that area then to shipping coming in, both military and perhaps more importantly in the long term to the humanitarian aid vessels who will want to use this port. So there has been progress this morning, but of course everything certainly here has stopped while this situation is dealt with. Everything is being done to make progress at the best pace possible, but there's no point in moving on if the situation here has not been resolved 100%.
This is Brian Wilson in Washington, Fox News Washington. We are watching coverage from our sister news organization, Sky News, which broadcasts largely into Europe. They have reporters near the port city of Qasr, where you have seen and you've heard an update. Apparently a firefight broke out. Now, we have been told this port city was largely under the control of coalition forces, but apparently in Qasr and in nearby Basra, there are still some mop-up operations underway, and that appears to be what we are witnessing now. Let's go back now to our coverage from Sky TV.
We have Pete MacDonald, who is a Sky engineer. We have Simon Walker, who is from the Times newspaper, a photographer here with us, and a Telegraph writer, Tim Butcher, who is also here with us. We have moved with 3 Commander Brigade headquarters pretty much everywhere they have been deployed. The way we get this back to you, obviously we have a camera and a microphone. This is then hardwired via a wire back to a satellite truck, which is just the other side, the safe side, we hope, of this berm here, where Pete MacDonald has fired up the satellite. It goes up to a satellite somewhere up in the sky and is downloaded in the UK and piped to you via the various television organizations. That is the layman's guide and is no more than I understand, Simon.
No, we appreciate that, but as I say, that there are questions being asked about how the technology has kept up with what's going on. What about the attitude of those you're with towards the media? Does there come a point where it's a hindrance? I mean, do they mind that they're on live television as they are technically killing Iraqis while they're at war?
I think they understand, excuse me, I think they understand that in the 21st century, I apologize for my voice, I just tried to drink some water, it went down the wrong way. In the 21st century, the media is very much at the forefront of influencing what people think back home, be it here, be it back home in Britain, be it back in the United States and everywhere else across the world. They see that the best way of getting the message across, undiluted if you like, unfiltered, without the spin, is to let the camera teams, the journalists come with them and say, look, you are free to report what we are doing as it happens and report on what has happened. The only constraints we have are we are not allowed to report for operational security reasons what we may know about what is going to happen. So whilst I've been questioned numerous times about what happens next, what are they going to do, what is the next task, my life and the lives of all these people around me may well depend on that being kept a secret, and I, for one, am not about to divulge that. But notwithstanding that, we are allowed to film pretty much anything and everything.
David, clearly we're still looking at an assessment of the situation. What are you hearing?
Yeah, there is a civilian white vehicle has just moved into the area. I don't know whether at this moment in time it's deemed hostile or is full of friendlies. So let me shout across here and see if anybody knows. Excuse me, gentlemen, do we know who this white vehicle is? I don't know whether you heard that. Not yet. We're trying to get positive ID on it right now. One of the US Marines just told me.
And that is the hold-up right now, is it, David?
That's it. It's very much stop and start. There is no point, and there would be a lot of outcry, I suspect, in living rooms across the world if it was seen that these Marines were simply opening up on anything that moved. That may well be a non-hostile vehicle. It may well have friendly coalition forces in it. Apparently there is some talk that we may have an ambulance coming into the area at the moment. You can probably see on the road there appears to be vehicles moving both ways. That is actually behind the targeted building that this morning has been all about. So presumably is not causing too much concern here. It's what is happening almost in the foreground, if you like, that people are dealing with here.
David, of course, we've been looking now at troops lying in the sand with their rifles for nearly an hour in what is becoming an increasingly baking sun. I mean, what are the conditions like, and how do they get through this?
It's very hot, as you say, Simon, as you know. They're trying to take on water. Every now and again an instruction will go out saying they can drink 50% of their canteens, get some water inside them. Dehydration is very rapid in these conditions. A lot of these men have got their MBC suits on, their anti-chemical weapon suits on as well as all their webbing, the weapons they are carrying. It is not easy to operate in these conditions when there is nobody firing at you. It is more difficult, of course. Adrenaline will be pumping. There is a life-threatening situation here. So it's very, very difficult to operate in these conditions, certainly for the soldiers.
This is Brian Wilson at Fox News Washington, just to bring you up to date on what you're watching. This is apparently reporting from our Sky News sister operation near the port city of Qasr in Iraq. This is actually a port city that had been reported to be well under U.S. control about a day ago. However, as you can see, apparently still there's some pockets of resistance. And as our Sky News team is revealing to us, they are still very concerned about some elements in that region. So let's go back to some of this coverage, some compelling pictures we're getting from Qasr, a port city where there is still some mop-up operations going on. We are told that similar operations are underway in the next city north of there, the major city north of there, which is known as Basra. But let's go back to our Sky News coverage now.
The idea of completely sanitizing and securing and safety factors in Basra was less of an issue than securing this port here in Qasr. The tanks appear to be moving, I'm being told now. You can probably see it. I don't know whether they have been told to move in or whether they're moving in just to find out what is happening. Again, I'll try and see if I can get some information here if you hold on to a second. Do we know why the tanks are moving, guys? Okay, we don't know up here why the tanks are moving in, but it's fairly obvious. You can see it for yourselves that that line of tanks is moving in very slowly towards where that fire was coming from earlier on this morning. I have to tell you that for probably the best part of an hour or so now, there has been no fire out of that area. There have been a number of vehicles sighted. They have been checked out, assessed whether they were friendly or hostile, and at least one of those has been taken out, and we know that there are 3 Iraqis dead in and around that vehicle. So you're seeing it unfold here. You know as much as I do now. The U.S. Marines here on this berm do not know, certainly as far as we can ascertain, exactly what the orders are for those tanks. It's looking to me, as I look over, as if they may... There was a word there about the tanks. I didn't quite catch it. Just bear with me 1 second. Do we know what that guy said then?
Tanks inbound. Tanks inbound.
Okay, it was simply a confirmation that the tanks are inbound. You can probably see that they've speeded up now and are moving at a reasonable pace now towards what will be the target, what was the target earlier this morning. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4 tanks on that road. The first one is moving more quickly than the others. They appear to be in holding. They all appear now actually to have stopped, apart from the second one. I'm hearing in my right ear that there have been some more bodies, i.e. people, sighted moving around in the area too. So this is obviously the final push towards. I'm being told now that there is a vehicle, I think it's a vehicle that is flying the Iraqi flag. I don't know exactly where that is. I don't know whether Mike can see it and whether you can see it. Obviously very, very difficult here. A lot of information coming in from various sources, and what you are seeing is a fairly sizable proportion of it, but obviously not everything. Difficult to know exactly what is going on now and what stage of this entire operation we are now at, whether or not it is about to be brought to a close or whether very much we're still in the middle of it here, Simon.
David, Al Jazeera television is quoting Iraqi sources as saying that there is a counterattack, an Iraqi counterattack on 2 fronts. Presumably this they would count as one of them. I mean, how does that sound to you? Are we talking about an isolated incident, or is there an impression amongst the forces
Simon,
that are with you
Simon,
that
let me interrupt you. Simon, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you. We're about to have the tanks firing in there. I'll be quiet and you can watch it happen. Well, Simon, there you saw a brief period of fighting from what looks like the second tank along. Difficult to see whether that is going to continue or whether there will be any more. There's more fire going in now.
The front bus. There's the white house. No, in front of us there's right ahead, right ahead, the tower, like right in the foreground. Yep. Behind that to the right. Yep. All the way around. Next to the pile of rocks, my guys are down there and he's down. And they got fucking shit put down there scanning. What building are you talking about? Nobody knows. We go from the corner of that yellow wall all the way across the front. Roger, good to go.
Okay.
Should move up a little bit.
Occasionally, we kind of need to drop in.
Well, I wouldn't have up to the side. Yeah, sorry. Doing good, doing good. All right. Changed your barrel lately?
He's still lying there.
This is Brian Wilson, Fox News in Washington. You are watching coverage of a fight that is going on in the port city of Qasr in southern Iraq. This is a city that was supposed to be under coalition control firmly, but as you can see, there is some activity going on there and some fighting. Let's just listen in.
Sergeant Major wants to know, does anybody want to re-enlist? I think I'll do my re-enlistment on TV right now. Jet engine. Did you re-enlist that?
Which one? Lead tank.
Far left. Bunker. Going to that building, I think, Mike. Take you that long, tank. Come on.
Where's the bunker?
Put the sign on it. Bunker. Got a target on it. Right in front. That sandbag bunker was with them. They must be kidding. We did. You guys started. What? What's that? You heard the pop shot. Did you? Yes.
Third platoon captured 4 D-30.
Roger, we've got confirmation now coming from the line, over.
Can I just ask you what's happening?
Roger, right now we just got a confirmation that we've got some pop shots. I guess somebody's trying to return fire with the tanks onto the tanks, over. I believe the first tank's about to take a shot right now. There we go. Apparently there's somebody back there apparently that wants to keep going.
There go the heavy rounds.
Hoorah.
I was just speaking to the staff sergeant. They're saying that the tanks were taking fire inside the building. I believe one of them
We've got a
set off 120 rounds.
Somebody coming down here. Somebody's trying to shoot back at the tanks from back there right now.
I think that's fine.
What's that? No, not flashes.
In that building.
Audible.
Shot all tanks. Extreme.
So we can't use that
now we have a bar.
Yeah, he's getting one. Pete. Pete recording in the van. Does that need changing?
It's not on fire. But that round.
Is Pete recording it in the van? Yes.
I don't know whether you heard that, but word has just gone down the line here to keep your heads down. Shots are coming out of the building still.
That bunker on the top. I was talking to some of the grunts that control themselves earlier this morning before this firefight began. Get it into the room. And they were saying, look.
Hey, Terrapin 1, we've got a 119 column tank. He said from his position he observed enemy troops behind that tree line. He told them to go ahead and open up on them.
This is exactly what they're doing. So we do not want the soldiers second part, one of the Marines. There goes another one. Go heavy attacks. Exactly what. Where we have, no sir, not lately. Had definite movement in that area, which is what we were firing at from our position an hour ago. But not since the lines were
Bob, it's Simon. Hello, Bob. I'm in the middle of a firefight, mate. It's really kicked off somewhere at 4. It's been going for the last couple of hours. Are you watching it? Yeah, well, I'm in the middle of all that. So, just gearing you up, really. Yeah, of course. Gearing you up for it. You're going to get loads of stuff. The tanks are taking place apart now, frankly. It's been a bit fun and games. But some nice stuff. So I'll let you have that later, but once it's all over, which might be, a few hours from now, right?
It's just going to change.
Yeah,
Yeah, of course. I had real problems yesterday with the Sunday Times. You know, lots and lots of great stuff. But I ended up having to wire half of them around it and then sort it out. Their modem was cutting off every place. But I won't have to problem the same problems today because it won't work. All right. All right.
Well, you're watching Sky News Compulsive Viewing. I think you'll agree as we monitor live that
live pictures.
Firefight, that gunfight in Qasr with our...
This is Brian Wilson in Washington. You're listening to, you're looking at live pictures from Qasr, where there is a major firefight underway, a mop-up operation. Clearly, there are elements inside this area that are still putting up some resistance. And you've been watching U.S. Marines at work with heavy artillery, heavy tanks coming in to clean out this nest. And there are apparently reports of shots coming back toward the tanks from that area. This is from an area that was supposed to be under firm coalition control. But as we are seeing live from our sister organization, Sky News, there are still pockets of resistance. Allison Camerata is with me in New York. Allison?
Brian, I wish you could be here with me in the studio in New York to be here and hear Captain David Christian and Colonel David Hunt as they've been watching this. It must be like watching a football game with professional football players. You know, they're barking out commands of what should be happening here. Gentlemen, Colonel Hunt, I'll start with you. How do you assess what you're watching? What's going on here?
These are great Marines doing the right thing. What you've seen is the difference in an American way of fighting a war. This may seem slow to some. First of all, they're protecting their Marines. They're doing a very smart thing. They've been fired on by the shadowy figure, I think we're calling him, who's trying to commit suicide right now by fighting a tank. And they're trying to protect the civilian population. They didn't just go in there, call it a B-52 strike, attack the building. They've been very methodical. And this is how we've been conducting this war for the days. The safest place to be would be where we want to bomb, next to a building we want to bomb. We are not, we've kept true to our word. We're not at war with the Iraqi people. If we were, that tank could rubble that building right now.
Because we're doing it with such precision.
Precision and care, absolute care. And this is extremely smart use of equipment. It's a tank. You've got a tank available. Why take them on with infantry? Take them on with a tank. Never thinking the idiot would keep fighting a tank, and this guy's decided to do it. You've noticed they use machine guns first. They shot a little bit of machine gun, a little bit more. He shot back, they put a tank on him, and the same thing with the house.
We think that our correspondent at Sky News, our sister network, is speaking. Let's listen.
Very well done.
To make sure that their people are safe when they go into these situations. So until they are entirely convinced that this is over, that there are no more hostiles, as they call them, in that building, capable of doing them any harm, they will not let up. As I said before, if they need to demolish that thing brick by brick to make sure, that is what they will do. There won't be much left of that building when they've finished.
And interesting militarily that we are seeing tanks, artillery being used in the same way that you saw Cobra helicopters being used, coming in to mop up, if you like, just to ensure that this operation is completed satisfactorily.
That's right. As I say, there was an escalation, a fairly rapid escalation in the type of firepower being used. When this all started off originally, it was just men with their M16s and machine guns who ran up onto the top of this berm and started pouring fire down onto that area. Then they were supplanted with mortars. Mortar rounds started going into that area, and then there were 2 Javelin missile strikes. The first one went long of the building that we were just looking at that is now smoking. The second one was a direct hit, went straight into the top of the building, and we thought that that was it. Then the tanks arrived. They parked up just a ways down the road, waited for a while, and then slowly moved in. And as the last half an hour or so, I suppose, has played out, we've seen those tanks move into position. They've taken 2 positions out, one in a bunker, a berm similar to the one that I'm sitting in now, where they thought that there was Iraqi fire coming out of. Now they're concentrating their fire on the building that we were watching just a short time ago. But as Mike is showing you the pictures now, we have one of the U.S. Marines with big binoculars getting eyeballs on the situation, trying to find out what is going on there. But until that building is completely clear, till everyone up here is happy that no one is in danger, then this situation will go on.
It's 7:10 in the UK. It's, of course, 10:10 out here in the Gulf. And the sun is up, and these soldiers now have been on their stomachs, lying in the sand for something over an hour, and it must be most uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's closer to 2 now, Simon. This still kicked off 10, 15 minutes past 8 o'clock local time. We're now 2 hours into it, and it's still going on. I think it points up quite obviously that very small numbers of resistance can put up a whole barrage of problems for a very highly trained, highly equipped unit. The whole mission here has had to come to a halt while they deal with what is probably no more than a handful, maybe a dozen or so Iraqis who have been firing on their position. So whilst it might not be a huge problem in the great scheme of things, these are not vast numbers of people, they have brought this situation to a halt for 2 hours at least. It looks like it's going to go on for a little while longer, and until this area is completely safe, and nothing is to say that this is not the beginning of maybe a series of attacks on this position. This could go on for the rest of the day, perhaps even longer than that, and all the time the next mission, the next task for the 15 MEU here is having to be put on ice.
David, you say this could last some time. There are those watching who are going to see all this artillery, all these men ranged against this one building, who are going to say, surely it doesn't need to take that long if they take the decision to just take that building out.
I'm not a military commander, Simon, neither are you, but I suspect there are sound military reasons for safety and security that it is being done the way it is being done. It is in nobody's best interest to try and drag this out. It achieves nothing. These people are trying to deal with this in the most efficient, most pragmatic way possible. It's taking this long because it needs to take this long. And I suspect that until they are absolutely sure, they will make sure that they have the upper hand, they have plenty of firepower to suppress any firepower that may come out of that building or anywhere else along this area of operation at the moment. The fact that we have received incoming fire from 2 positions does not mean that there are not Iraqis in other positions simply keeping their heads down, waiting till all this is over, simply to start it all up again. And until we do know that, then these men will stay here on their bellies in the dirt, staring down their rifle sights.
David, if Mike Donnelly, the cameraman, can just bring us some pictures of the tanks while you just retrench, if you like. I'd like to bring in Francis Tusa, who's monitoring this in London, our defence analyst.
Yeah, I have to speak to Mike over the air, Simon. Mike, they want you to pan round onto the tanks again and just give us that shot again. Mike cannot hear you. I can hear you, so I'm his on-air director as well. There you go. You've got that shot now.
David. Thank you very much indeed. I'll just bring Francis in, and David was using that very important word pragmatic, because we've been talking about military plans, but there are no plans when you come across a situation like this. You have to act as you see fit at the time.
Local commander will make the decision. Understandable. Bearing in mind the Marines there are what? Certainly 250, maybe just shy of 300 meters away from that house and the positions. Apart from the wall, you can just see at the bottom of the picture there, it's pretty open ground. Would you A, like to try and charge across the open ground, or B, call in tanks? Well, there's, that's a no-brainer. Certainly the amount of fire we've seen, the 2, if they're US Marine Corps, they're M1A1 Abrams, the slightly older generation, they've been using every weapon on board there. The 7.62 gun, which the gunner has under his command. Interestingly, the tanks, if you look at them, the crew has gone in heads up. They haven't battened down the hatches because the heavy machine gun fire was the commander's 50 caliber. He has to be up in the turret to fire that. And then finally, we've seen the main caliber gun being fired on the building and on that bunker. So we're at a waiting game. We did see out of the left hand of those 2 tanks one of the commander getting out and on top of the turret, probably to have a look. So he's obviously relatively confident that nothing was going to be coming out back at him. I suspect that the situation now is at what stage, and you've got Marines standing up on the road now, they're going to have to send someone in to check the house out. That is the next stage, sooner rather than later.
I'm going to keep David's microphone is open. He can obviously hear us. David, if anything happens, just shout over us and we will suddenly keep very quiet for you. Francis, there's a lot of criticism, isn't there, about armchair generals, but here is everybody watching what's happening live in front of them. What do you make of what you're seeing, Francis? And if you like, what does it say about 21st century warfare that not only are we getting analysis, we're actually getting live commentary from analysts?
Wouldn't like to be the lieutenant or the NCO on the ground. We've got fire going in on another position there, hitting a wall where the camera was on there, suspecting that was from one of the tanks, seen another target. Let's put it this way, there was an incident, and this is going back 5 years, in Bosnia during peacekeeping, where, because pictures shown live on air of a riot, the NATO Supreme Commander got patched through to the lieutenant on the ground to give him orders as to what to do. Well, this sort of passage of information is getting, I suspect from the ground commander's point of view, worse and worse. The ability for pictures to be seen this quickly, and potentially, because every single station, as far as we can see, are taking David and his crew's pictures and David's words. This will be on all the screens at the command centre in Qatar and in Kuwait and in the Pentagon and in the MOD, and at the moment everyone's attention is on this piece of southeast Iraq.
Let's go back to David, who's in the field, and David, just bring us up to date with what your understanding of progress that's being made is.
My understanding is not much greater than yours, I have to confess, Simon. At the moment, I'm trying to attract the attention of the staff sergeant we spoke to a short time ago to try and get an update. When he wanders back through my field of vision, I will try and grab him and get him to give us a couple of words. But it's fairly obvious from what we're seeing that they're not as yet satisfied that that area is completely free from any danger to them. They are still pouring rounds into there. What I can see just to the right, if Mike Donnelly just pans the camera around, Mike, right down the road there, the road where the tanks are on, you'll see a convoy of vehicles headed by a white four-wheel drive moving down. Now, I don't know whether they are military vehicles. I suspect they are. It looks certainly like the ones following with the lights on are Humvees, probably American military vehicles. Who is on them, what they are doing, I have no way of knowing yet. But obviously, they will be coming to try and reinforce the position here. It may be more armor, it may be more communications equipment. We simply don't know. As I say, when I can try and attract the attention of the staff sergeant, I will do so and try and give you an update. In the meantime, I will try and tell you as much as I can see of what is going on out with the pictures that you are seeing now. Mike is showing you the great numbers of people who are laid down here, the U.S. Marines. Bear with me 1 second. I have a U.S. Marine here. Yeah. Can I just
David,
ask
I'm going to let
what's
you
your
do
understanding of what's happening right now?
Right now, we're suppressing the danger area right now with those tanks, as you can well see. We're trying to get a fire mission over there with mortar fires. That's all I know as far as right now.
And what about
we don't know anything. We don't know anything about any enemy yet.
What about these vehicles that we can see arriving as we speak? Do you know who they are and what they're doing?
Well, they're friendly forces. Now we're moving the convoy back over here. I don't know anything else about that.
Thank you very much indeed. So there you have it, as up to date as you can possibly be from the forces here on the ground. They don't know what the situation is with the enemy in that house at the moment. They're continuing to fire on it and will continue to do that until they are satisfied that it is safe for them to go into there. Meanwhile, a convoy that presumably was heading elsewhere is now being brought back here to the safety of the port area, which is fairly heavily fortified. This berm is a fairly permanent structure. To give you an idea, I guess it's maybe 20, 30, perhaps even 40 feet high, and there are concrete inserts into it. You may remember that when we first started talking, I was standing in it. I'm now sitting on top of it to talk to you. So it's a fairly robust structure all the way along it. At its front leading edge, we have U.S. Marines with machine guns, and of course they're...
We want to bring in a little analysis with our two experts here in the studio, Captain David Christian and Colonel David Hunt, and we also wanted to just talk about what we've been seeing here. This is remarkable that we have been seeing live pictures in real time of an actual battle happening. This is a historic moment that we have all been able to have this bird's eye view of what is a dangerous, risky situation, and we are all watching it. Captain Christian, I want to get your analysis of what you've been seeing here.
Well, they've taken small arms fire, and the first thing you would do is call in support, either tactical air support with marker rounds with white phosphorus. They would drop bombs, 850-pound bombs, 750-pound bombs, or you'd bring in artillery support, or you'd bring in tanks. They have the luxury of the tanks. The tanks are nice because you can move in tandem oftentimes. And move the tanks up, the infantry would then move up. In firing the tanks, they started off probing with 50 caliber, and we saw 50 caliber probing the areas. They're looking for the shadowy figure. Then
trying to flush them out? I mean, just what does that mean? Shooting into that area? That
probing would be trying to flush them out, yes.
Okay.
And what happened, David Hunt was just chatting with myself. Someone who was trying to commit suicide fired at the tank with small arms. I mean, you don't fire at a tank with a small arm weapon. And as a result, a couple large rounds were fired off from the tank, as well as 50 caliber machine guns. We saw the building hit. And David will talk, I think, about how careful and how respectful we've been for the infrastructure around this area. We could have, and leave David go with that one.
Yeah, Colonel Hunt, you were saying, I mean, this is basically emblematic, this battle, I think, of how we've conducted this entire war thus far. Just explain that.
Yeah, from the 19th when we started, we shot at a meeting with Hussein, his sons, and a couple other guys. We shot 30, 40 cruise missiles through windows. So we watched the bombing the other night, in which we had bombs dropping next to buildings and the lights stayed on, to taking places with Navy SEALs without firing a round, to watching these great Marines. What's interesting to me is how low-key and professional they've been. You don't see a general or a colonel or even a captain running over here trying to take over this battle. This is done by sergeants and lieutenant the right way. It's low-key, professional. Look at these guys haven't moved the whole time we've been there. And they're systematically using the perfect vehicle for this, which is a tank they can control. And they're being very selective about not going to hurt civilian casualties, because we've said, as a country, it's a war of liberation. It's the finest example of American fighters, in this case, Marines. And these guys were under the command yesterday, Royal Marines, British Foreign Force, when they landed on this Qasr, and great operation. And it's expected this would go on for days. These pockets, whatever, however you want to describe them. People who didn't get the word, we own the city. They're upset. They got a gun, and they decided to commit suicide. This is over whenever we decide it's over.
We want to remind people that you're watching this via Sky News, our sister network. They are covering this as it's happening. It's happening live. And Colonel Hunt, we heard the correspondent wondering what that convoy of equipment and vehicles coming in was. You know what it is. Explain why they were coming.
Yeah, the town's been taken. We're going to use that town, the coalition, excuse me, to use it for resupply for humanitarian reasons. So we've got to set up the port. And what you saw there was some of the vehicles going to be used. And you also saw the restraint. This is so, I mean, it's surreal. The reporter sitting there cross-legged with his bottle of Perrier in his British accent with a puffy microphone and said, hey, by the way, Lieutenant, come over here and talk to me. And the Lieutenant does. Yes. It's absolutely amazing. And yet, it's professional. These guys aren't, their uniforms, nobody's taking a helmet off. These guys are complete professionals about what they're doing. They're lying, by the way, and it's 90-degree heat. You don't see anybody moving. You don't see the indiscriminate firing on the part of the Marines. It's controlled, disciplined. It's beautiful. It's really, really well done.
And last, do you think because the camera is there and these guys are aware that this is being broadcast live, do you think it is making the commander somewhat hamstrung? Is he taking fewer risks, Captain Christian, or what? Is it affecting it at all?
I think your training kicks in, and be damned with the cameras. Once you start hearing the crack of fire, bullets, your training kicks in, and it's a courtesy. The Marine lieutenant is just doing a courtesy. He doesn't have to do. He's gone back to the camera, and he's giving the courtesy of explaining the perception of we're taking fire, we're suppressing that fire, how we're suppressing the fire. He's explaining that. So he's doing an analysis the same way we're doing an analysis for the American public back here. And it's just absolutely amazing. But these guys are frozen in time. You know, we've been watching this now for 30 minutes, and these Marines have been frozen. They're not moving, and the reason being they're not giving the enemy a chance at a target. They're not moving.
Let's take a listen in.
And the main building that started this all off over there, that is now clear. There is no hostile fire from there at all now.
That is not clear. We can't make a total confirmation of clear until we actually sweep some bodies and get some infantrymen on the ground.
And what about the berm that appeared to be a second position that certainly I wasn't aware of? Did you know that there were people in there?
No, most likely what happened is once they entered that building, the personnel filed out and just started seeking cover behind that berm, and they were able to observe at a better vantage point where they exactly were.
And the convoy that has just come in here, did you call that back, or was it due in here anyway?
It was, I believe, due in here. I can't confirm whether it's due in here or not.
Okay, so there you have the very latest update. What they are doing is they have reason to believe that there are potential Iraqi gunmen in that new building, so they are firing upon it now. That firing is continuing, as you can see, the sparks flying as the rounds go in there. Meanwhile, the convoy that you saw earlier is now within...
Well, this is Brian Wilson in Washington, where we've been riveted to the screen as we watch the activities of U.S. Marines against Iraqi forces. Some compelling firefight going on there in the port city of Qasr. Joining me in the adjacent military war set is Lieutenant Colonel William Cowan, one of our Fox News military analysts. You've been watching this, no doubt, Lieutenant Colonel Cowan, with great interest. What are you drawing from this? What is of interest to you as you watch this Marine firefight in Qasr?
Well, first and foremost, Brian, it is fascinating to be able to watch this in real time. But you can see here the fact that the things can really get delayed by a few people. And if you don't mind, I'll go to the screenwriter here and just point out a couple things that are of key importance to the people who are watching this thing from afar, not just those on the ground. Here we are looking at Qasr, which we felt before we had a good handle on, that we owned. So for the war planners, for the people down there with General Franks, we've got a lot of activity. We're moving our people up here, trying to move in on Baghdad. We've just cleared out Al-Nasiriyah. We've got a lot of activity going on. And suddenly, to our consternation, behind us now, we've got some fighting going on. And this creates a problem for us because we've got to make sure we've got clean avenues all the way up towards Baghdad. We've run into this first engagement. This may be, for some of these kids, the first combat that they've been in. And this is the kind of time when you really want to have the Powell Doctrine of overwhelming force. We can't afford to let too often little skirmishes like this hold us up. We've got to jump on them. We've got to isolate these guys. We've got to get them out of the way, and we got to keep moving. So this indicates that we could have some problems as we march on.
And based on what you're seeing, the Marines and their performance so far, textbook pretty much?
I'd say textbook because they're all down in cover. They called in supporting arms right away. And I'm sure Colonel Hunt and Captain Christian, who've both been in plenty of combat themselves, we're all watching this thing, wishing that we were there, maybe feeling we'd maneuver a little faster, a little bit more to the left, a little bit more to the right. I'm surprised we haven't seen any gunships come in to support this thing. Typically what you'd like to do in a situation like this is get some helicopter gunships.
Lieutenant Colonel Cowan, let's listen in some, because apparently we're hearing some interesting things being said.
So across this field of vision, there are 120 gunmen somewhere in there that will have to be dealt with. This, we are told, from a Republican Guard officer who has been captured this morning by the U.S. Marines. That's the very latest from here.
David, the hope has to be that those 120 are shortly going to want to surrender.
That, of course, would be the hope all round, certainly from this side of the berm, if you like. But obviously, as we have seen, there are people out there who still have the will to try and take on what is an overwhelmingly much better equipped, much more numerous and much better trained force. They still seem to want to try and disrupt and delay. They are having some success, it must be said. They have certainly delayed operations here by 2.5 hours or so already, and it seems that it will be some time yet before this is over. But of course, this bears out what we were saying yesterday and last night. Reports that Republican Guards officers had been sent down here undercover, if you like, in plain clothes, to stiffen the resolve of the regular troops down here who were capitulating in their hundreds. And obviously, to a certain extent down here, that has had some effect. There is obviously opposition to the US and British forces down here. We've seen it this morning in the guise of this firefight, and if this man is to be believed, there are still 100 or so of them out there bent on doing us damage over here.
David, thank you for that. Francis in London, a Republican Guard officer in plain clothes. Should we be surprised that he should be the one who gives himself up, or perhaps he understands better than anyone what he's up against here in Qasr?
Or captured, but just as a general point, Simon, 120, and we have to assume not badly armed people. This is no longer a skirmish, it's a battle. Generally speaking, to do attacks, and it's not absolutely perfect rule of thumb, but 3 to 1. Well, 120 men there, that's a company, which means to attack it, you need 3 companies. 3 companies equals a battalion. This is no longer a trivial little behind-the-line pocket. It is actually a serious problem, which commanders are now going to have to grip very, very quickly. Call in Cobras, call in extra troops, and as we heard from the staff sergeant on the ground, you can't just shoot up a few buildings and then say it's clear. Someone is going to have to go in and check the buildings. That is the final act of what we're seeing here, is infantry have to go through. So this has become a battle.
David, is there any sign there of any air power being brought in?
Certainly not as yet, Simon. I'm scouring the air as we speak. I can't see any. I don't know whether any has been called in. I suspect the idea was certainly initially that the tanks would do that job, and as far as we can see, they're doing a reasonable job of it. They moved through that berm. Maybe that was where the officer, the Republican Guards officer, ended up giving himself up or being captured, because, as the staff sergeant told us earlier, there were some people who had moved from the building where the initial fire came from to take cover behind that berm, and they were flushed out. Then the building itself has been taken out, and now the focus of fire appears to be another building, which you can probably see there in the picture. That vanilla-colored building looks like some kind of warehouse or something, quite a substantial building, and one of the tanks at least was pouring